question is to the Minister of Northern Development and Mines and Forestry, and it goes as such. A number of people in our constituency and across the north are quite concerned about the closure of the Xstrata smelter refinery in the city of Timmins. They've been writing you letters, and in those letters they've been asking your government to intervene in some way in order to be able to keep that facility open. One of the suggestions is to follow the legislation that I put forward that would make changes to Section 91 of the Act in order to ensure that we get value added to those resources that we extract from the ground. What's interesting, in your response on page 2 to the letters that you've been sending back, you say, it is important to note that no province in Canada has a law that dictates mandatory provincial processing. Minister, that's not true. The reality, the province of Newfoundland has similar legislation to what it is that I have put forward, and other provinces varying measures in order to get to that particular point. Are you prepared to clarify by rewriting letters to people to say that in fact those provisions do?
Thank you. Minister?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, in fact, I think the member does know that indeed no province has legislation which requires processing in their and that does include Newfoundland and Labrador. We know that there are minerals coming from Voisey Bay. We know that are being processed in Ontario at the Xstrata Falconbridge smelter. That is just a fact, and he does know that. We also know that there's a significant amount, in fact, 3/4 of the iron ore that comes into our steel plants in Sault Ste. Marie and in Hamilton, 3/4 of that comes from Labrador, Quebec, Minnesota, and Michigan, I believe. So while there is I think a clause in their legislation that allows them to invoke that, there is no legislation that requires processing to be taking place in the province. So I think the member understands that. Certainly, I mean, let me just state once again, we are obviously incredibly concerned about the impact this is having on the workers, obviously, of the Xstrata decision, and it's something that we want to continue to work closely with you.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Well, what I understand is you're trying to confuse the issue. It's quite simple. Other provinces want to add value to those minerals and have different mechanisms in order to do so. The province of Newfoundland has, what I'm proposing in Section 91, an ability to say to companies such as Xstrata, you will not shut down your refinery and you will refine and smelt those materials here. So for you to write a letter to constituents across Northern Ontario to say that is not the fact, that no other province does that, is false. So I ask you again, are you prepared to retract what you have said by way of follow-up letters to these people in order so that they clearly understand the facts for what they are and not what you're making up?
Ask the honourable member to withdraw the comment, please.
Making up? He made it up. It's a fact.
Withdraw the comment, please.
Okay.
Just say I withdraw.
I withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly understand very, very well, as does the Premier, about what an incredibly difficult situation this is. I mean, the Premier met with Mick Davis, the global CEO of Xstrata, last week, and he asked some pretty tough questions about, and in fact, we made it clear that we would like nothing better than to have Xstrata change their mind on this decision. But in terms of the situation in Newfoundland and Labrador, the fact is, it's a misconception that all materials from Voisey's Bay have to be processed in Newfoundland when we know that our various parts are being shipped to Ontario for processing. We cannot close our borders without having a massive impact, potentially on thousands of other workers in Ontario. I mean, as I pointed out, Newfoundland, they do have a clause that they can choose to invoke, but they don't invoke the clause. In the case of iron ore, I mean, in the case of other minerals. So we're going to continue to work with you. We want to find, I was in Timmins last week, as you know, we were able to make an announcement of 4.
Thank you. New question.